Every day we make choices, hundreds of them. From the seemingly insignificant what to wear, what to eat, to the ones that ripple through our lives like aftershocks. Who to trust, what to pursue, when to walk away. We act like it's all instinct, like we're in control. But most of us are sleepwalking through our decisions, guided not by clarity but by fear, bias, pressure, and unresolved emotions. We don't even realize we're making the call. This is the hidden truth. Choosing isn't just a logical process, it's an emotional one. And when we ignore that emotional layer, we don't make decisions, we make reactions. Fast, unexamined, and often destructive. Emotional intelligence isn't just a buzzword, it's the secret weapon behind every powerful choice. It's the difference between walking toward your future or running from your past. The art of choosing begins with a pause. Not a hesitation, not a delay, but a conscious pause. That brief moment when you resist the urge to react. Because in that space lies your power. Most people don't realize they even have that space. They feel something, anger, fear, urgency, and immediately act on it. But high emotional intelligence means stepping into that gap, observing your feelings without being ruled by them. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being emotionally fluent. Understanding that your emotions are signals, not commands. Think about the last time you made a poor decision. Was it because you didn't have enough information? Or was it because you ignored how you felt? Or worse, because you let how you felt control the outcome? That's what emotional blindness does. It hands the steering wheel to your inner chaos. But when you understand your emotional landscape, when you know your triggers, your defaults, your wounds, you stop reacting blindly. You start choosing consciously. Decision-making isn't just about outcomes, it's about alignment. What are you aligning with? Your values, your vision, your truth, or your fear, your ego, your comfort zone? Every choice you make is a vote for the person you want to become, or the person you're trying to outgrow. And if you're not clear on who you are, your choices will never feel right, no matter how logical they seem. That's why the most dangerous decisions aren't the reckless ones, they're the subtle compromises, the "it's not a big deal" moments, the just this once choices, the slow erosion of your integrity in exchange for approval, convenience, or short-term relief. Over time, these decisions shape your identity. They form the story you tell yourself about who you are. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day and realize you've built a life around avoiding discomfort, not chasing truth. So how do you make better choices? You start by listening not just to logic, but to emotion, but not in the way you've been taught. Most people think feelings are the enemy of good decisions, that they cloud judgment. But the truth is, emotions are information. They're your internal compass. They tell you when something's off, when something's calling, when something's been avoided for too long. The key is not to silence them, it's to decode them. Fear doesn't always mean stop. Sometimes it means pay attention. Excitement doesn't always mean yes. Sometimes it means ego. Discomfort doesn't always mean danger. Sometimes it means growth. Emotionally intelligent. Decision-making means being able to sit with a feeling long enough to understand what it's really saying. Not what your past tells you. It means not what your trauma interprets, but what it's actually communicating in this moment, in this context. Clarity doesn't always come wrapped in calm. Sometimes it comes dressed as tension, as conflict, as doubt. And that's where most people sabotage themselves. They mistake peace for truth. But growth doesn't always feel peaceful. In fact, the most honest decisions you'll ever make often come with a storm. They feel like breaking free from something, and breaking free is rarely quiet. You have to be brave enough to choose what's hard when it's right. Brave enough to say no, when everything in you wants to people please. Brave enough to say yes, when everything in you is scared of the unknown. Decision-making is an emotional sport. It demands courage, self-trust, and the willingness to disappoint others before you betray yourself. We don't just fear bad decisions, we fear being responsible for them. That's why people cling to indecision. It feels safer. It gives you someone to blame. If life chooses for you, then you don't have to face yourself. But indecision is a decision. A slow, painful one. And it has its own cost. It drains your energy, erodes your confidence, and keeps you stuck in a loop of what-ifs. Every time you avoid a decision, you're reinforcing the belief that you can't trust yourself, and that belief is the death of progress. Building emotional intelligence is not about removing emotion from your choices. It's about understanding it. It's about knowing when your fear is protective and when it's limiting, when your anger is justified and when it's projection, when your sadness is grief and when it's stagnation. It's about making decisions that are not only smart, but also true. And truth isn't always comfortable. It's not always popular, but it's always liberating. When you make a decision rooted in truth, something shifts. Even if the outcome is hard, you feel aligned, you feel proud, you feel clean. That's the power of emotionally intelligent choice. It clears your path even when it's steep. But there's something else. Emotional intelligence isn't just inward, it's outward. How often do your decisions consider the emotional impact on others? Are you leading with empathy? Are you listening with curiosity instead of assumption? Are you making room for others' truths while standing in your own? Because the most powerful decisions are not just self-aware. They're relationally aware. They take into account not just what do I want, but also how does this affect the people I care about? And yet, even with empathy, even with self-awareness, the truth remains, you won't always get it right. You'll make mistakes, you'll choose wrong, but emotional intelligence gives you the tools to repair, to reflect, to learn, to pivot. It's not about perfection, it's about resilience, the ability to recover from missteps without losing yourself in shame or defensiveness. So when it comes to choosing, don't aim for being right all the time. Aim for being real. Aim for being whole, because a decision made from integrity, even if imperfect, is always more powerful than one made from fear. There's a moment somewhere between impulse and hesitation where real power exists. And in that moment, we often meet the version of ourselves we either want to be or desperately want to avoid. The question is, will we listen? Because the decisions that define us are rarely made in the spotlight. They're made in the quiet, in the back and forth dialogue we have with ourselves when no one's watching. That internal negotiation between comfort and courage and the outcome. It determines the entire trajectory of our lives. To master the art of choosing, you have to understand one thing. Decision-making is not a single act. It's a reflection of your patterns, your priorities, your emotional literacy. Most people aren't choosing, they're repeating. They're reacting from old wounds, default scripts, unconscious programming that feels like instinct but is actually avoidance wearing a mask. You think you're choosing freely, but you're really just trying not to get hurt again. That's not freedom, that's fear in disguise. Let's talk about regret. It's one of the most powerful emotional forces tied to our choices. But here's the truth. We don't regret bad outcomes as much as we regret betraying ourselves. When we choose something that feels wrong deep down, when we ignore that inner voice, when we abandon our truth to keep the peace or avoid conflict, that's the kind of decision that haunts us. Because deep inside we know we didn't just choose wrong, we chose small. And what about timing? We're obsessed with getting it right. Right time, right place, right conditions. But waiting for perfect clarity is often just procrastination dressed as patience. Emotional intelligence teaches us that clarity is not always immediate. Sometimes it comes after the choice. After we take the leap, after we trust our gut. Growth doesn't wait for you to feel 100% ready. It demands a kind of faith that can't be measured in logic. The kind of faith that says, even if I don't know how this ends, I know who I want to be while I walk through it. In this way, every decision becomes a mirror. What does this choice say about me? Am I choosing from power or from pain? From clarity or confusion? From expansion or contraction? Am I stepping toward who I want to become? Or am I running from who I used to be? That's the real work of emotional intelligence, learning to discern the source of your decisions. Not just what you're choosing, but why. Sometimes the most dangerous place to make decisions from is survival mode. When you're emotionally flooded, mentally exhausted, or spiritually depleted, your brain isn't designed for strategy, it's designed for safety. That's when you cling to the familiar, even if it's toxic. You accept less than you deserve, because you don't believe you can handle the consequences of choosing more. And so you shrink, you settle, you sabotage. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system is trying to protect you. This is why emotional regulation is so crucial. You can't make empowered decisions in a dysregulated state. You have to learn to calm the chaos inside before you choose. That might mean pausing, breathing, journaling, talking it out, taking a walk. Anything that brings you back to center. Because when your mind is spinning and your heart is racing, your choices will reflect desperation, not discernment. But even in that chaos, emotional intelligence gives you tools. It allows you to hold duality. To say I'm afraid, and I can still move forward. I'm uncertain, but I'm not unworthy. This is hard, and I'm capable. That balance between emotion and action, that's where mastery lives. Now let's take it a step deeper. Emotional intelligence also means understanding how your decisions affect others. Are you making choices that honor only your fears or also your responsibilities? Are you being reactive and calling it honesty, or are you owning your emotional impact? True maturity is recognizing that your emotions are yours to process, not someone else's to absorb. It's easy to justify decisions by saying I'm just doing what's best for me. But sometimes that's code for I don't want to deal with the consequences. Real growth asks for nuance. It asks you to consider how your decisions reverberate beyond your own skin. Because choosing isn't just about what you gain, it's also about what you might lose and what you're willing to sacrifice to stay aligned with your values, which brings us to boundaries. One of the most powerful applications of emotional intelligence in decision-making is knowing when to say no. Not out of anger or rebellion, but out of clarity. A no that honors your peace is always more powerful than a yes that fractures your soul. But boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They let the right things in and keep the wrong things out. And every boundary is a decision, a choice to protect what matters. But here's the paradox. Sometimes choosing well means letting go of control. Emotional intelligence teaches us that control is often just an illusion we cling to when we're scared. We think if we micromanage every detail, we'll avoid pain. But pain isn't always a sign. You did something wrong. Sometimes it's a sign you did something brave, something necessary, something real. Choosing well doesn't mean avoiding discomfort. It means choosing discomfort on purpose when the outcome aligns with your growth. It means facing temporary turbulence for the sake of long-term peace. It means making the hard call, the honest call, the call that might leave you trembling, but also leave you proud. And don't forget, no one else can choose for you. Not your friends, not your parents, not even the loudest voices in your head. Advice is helpful, but at the end of the day, only you live with the consequences. So stop outsourcing your power. Stop waiting for validation. Stop hoping someone else will make the hard call so you don't have to. This is your life, your path, your call. But maybe the most important part of all this is compassion. You won't always choose, right? You'll mess up. You'll backslide. You'll have moments where you knew better and didn't do better. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're human. And emotional intelligence means meeting that humanity with grace. Learning the lesson, making the repair, recommitting to truth. So here's the invitation. Choose from alignment, not approval. Choose from love, not lack. Choose from clarity, not chaos. And when you do, when your choices come from a grounded, emotionally aware place, something amazing happens. Your life begins to reflect your truth, not your wounds, not your programming, not your past, but you. Because the art of choosing isn't about being perfect. It's about being conscious, awake, present. And when you live that way, when every decision becomes an act of self-respect, self-trust, and emotional integrity, you stop drifting, you stop doubting, you start becoming. And that's when everything begins to change.